My name is David Hirst. I joined the band in 1969 at the age of 16 on soprano cornet. I then left the band in 1974 to join the James Shepherd Versatile Brass. I rejoined the band in 1977 and left again in 1980 to start conducting. I rejoined the band once more in 1987 as resident conductor and left in 1990 and I rejoined the band in 2015 as secretary, and I'm still here at the moment. Music's been very important really, because it's actually shaped the whole of my life in actual fact. I started playing at the age of 9, 10 with my local village band, Home Silver Band, and that was because one of my friends had joined the other band in the valley, which was the Hinchliffe Mill Band. I'm not sure why I joined the home band. I think it was primarily because my father worked at the mill just below the home band room, and I think that was essentially why I joined home band. And I made quite rapid progress, because at the age of 14 I joined the Yorkshire Imperial Metals Band on tutti cornet, and I stayed with them about 18 months, 2 years before I came to Black Dyke. I first became aware of Black Dyke while I was sort of beginning to learn how to play. I went along to the band practices, and everybody used to talk about this band, Black Dyke Mills Band, and their cornet player Jimmy Shepherd and John Clough and Frank Berry, and it was just sort of absorbed by osmosis really, because you begin to sort of hear these names and you begin to sort of get the background of the band without really actually ever going to see them. The first time I went to see the band was at the Yorkshire area, and I think, and I'm sure actually, that the test piece was the Les Francs Juges, which was the Judges of Secret Court, and it was in Bradford, St George's Hall, and I was spellbound by the fact that they came on stage with these black uniforms, the red lapels and all the gold braiding on. It was a fantastic experience, and from then on I was pretty captivated by it all. Oh, there are many memories really of foreign tours, particularly the first one that I went on to, which was Switzerland. I went for a tour of Switzerland for a week, and that was, I think, at the guest of Melodia Band, who were actually still in existence. We travelled to Lausanne in Switzerland and had an absolutely fantastic week, some great concerts. And the other great experience, among many I've got to say, was the trip to Canada in 1972, where 4 bands went out to Niagara Falls and performed many concerts over I think we were there for 2 weeks or 10 days, and we performed many individual concerts. There was a CWS Manchester Band, now sadly gone, the GUS Band, the Fairy Band and Black Dyke Band, and we all did individual concerts around the area and came together in a mass bands concert at the very end of the tour, which was absolutely marvellous. Performance as contest wins, really. There are many, of course, but I think the favourite for me was the British Open in 1972, where we performed the piece Sovereign Heritage, and that was an excellent performance, and I actually have the original recording of the contest performance, and there is a little section in the middle for a quartet which featured Jim Shepherd, John Clough, Frank Berry, and I think it was Kevin Wadsworth on solo horn. And if you listen to that playing, it's absolutely superb. It's the finest playing that I've heard, still, I think, really. And that was all done without a conductor. It was basically in free time, a cadenza section. And originally Geoffrey Brand had wanted to conduct it, but I'm not sure whether John Clough or Jim Shepherd actually mentioned in one of the rehearsals prior to the contest that he was just getting in the way, and could they do it without a conductor, and they actually did that without a conductor as well. So that was a fine performance that was really memorable for me. And the other one was the last performance I did with the band in 1979, last contest performance anyway, and that was Volcano at the national finals. And again, that was a marvellous piece. Very difficult and very taxing as far as the lip was concerned, but again, an excellent performance. And also, I've got the live recording of that also. There are many characters in the band. I'm sure there still are, and I know there are. And over the years, there's been many characters indeed. When I joined the band, of course, there were many established players, people like John Slinger, Frank Berry, Alan Holsworth, Derek Jackson. There were Peter McNabb. Really was a great character. In fact, Peter used to do some of the announcing sometimes instead of Roy Newsom, and Peter always had a nice sort of interesting story to tell. And he was an excellent character. There was another one called Peter Moorcroft, who was nicknamed Muffin because he was always eating sandwiches on the coach going to concerts. There were many of them. Malcolm Turton, David Pox, and some superb characters in the band who were really memorable, not only for the playing but also for the sort of social aspects of the band as well. The greatest influence, I think, on my musical career from the age of 15, 16 onwards was Geoffrey Brand. Geoffrey was a marvellous conductor, a very intellectual person who had the ability to actually draw out so many interesting facets of a performance. I'm not sure saying that every performance was a winning performance, but the enjoyment of the rehearsals leading up to the performances were extremely interesting and enlightening in actual fact, because he enabled the music to unfold in a marvellously intellectual way, and he made everyone understand what the music was about. And it wasn't just that, it was actually how to actually bring the music to life and characterize the music rather than just playing the notes. And I think that's something that's been partly lost in these days of making contest wins so important, that the actual music is sometimes lost in the process. Great players. Well, as I said, I mentioned my initial upbringing in the local band, the home band, and we always talked about the players that were in the Black Dyke band then, and those were James Shepherd, John Clough, Frank Berry. Because I was a soprano player, I was particularly interested in Tommy Waterman. I did meet Tommy after he'd finished with the band and I took over, and he was a great person as well. But people like Jim Shepherd, Jim was a fine cornet player, and a great bloke as well, really. But his playing was superb. In fact, I sat behind him for three years before he left to get the James Shepherd Burstyle brass, and I never heard him miss any notes at all as his solos, in his concert performances on the contest stage. Jim was as solid as a rock. So was Frank Berry. Frank was a fantastic technician on trombone. I believe he used to play euphonium at one time and then went on to trombone. And that technical ability that he had in the euphonium actually transferred so well onto the trombone. He was a superb player. And John Clough again, a fantastic player, fantastic character, and someone who could play so quiet that it was so difficult to actually accompany him. But these were all fantastic players. These were the solo chair people, but all the way down the line and round the band, they had some superb and memorable players. Challenges and difficulties with the band. There'll always be challenges and difficulties with a band such as this, because it relies on everyone performing to the greatest ability, and if that ability isn't up to standard, then that becomes a great problem, not only for the musical director to make the decision about whether you stay or not, but the players as well, who tend to lose respect. But I think the sort of biggest challenge I had with the band was when I became resident conductor in 19 87, and the band was going through quite a lot of turmoil at that point in time. And I think that the politics at that particular time overtook the music of the band. And I've got to say, I can't say that I did a particularly good job as resident conductor, and I think deservedly I had to disappear after 2 years. But I think quite rightly so. I didn't do a fantastic job. I did get embroiled too much in all the politics that was going on at that time, and it was a difficult period for the band, and I think there'll always be difficult periods for the band, but that for me perhaps was one of the saddest times that I had with the band, purely and simply because it didn't quite work out for me, and I'm sure it probably didn't work out for the band either. So we parted company after 2 years. The Black Dyke Mills Band really, in many respects, did have a great influence on my life. From someone who came from a West Yorkshire mill town of Holmfirth that had perhaps never actually been out of the valley much at all, I was suddenly sort of making my way to Canada, to America, to Switzerland, meeting different people, doing many different things, touring all over the UK. It did have a big impact on my life, and I think because I joined the band just on the edge of my 16th birthday, I was actually playing with people who were in the 30s, 40s, 50s, so I was actually mixing with people who had a greater experience of life than I did, and also people who were far better players. And in many respects that actually gave me something to look up to, because these people were extremely experienced, not only as players, but experienced as people as well. And a lot of that tended to rub off on me. And I'm not sure that everybody feels the same way, but certainly as a member of Black Dyke Band, I reflect back now on all those wonderful times and how it influenced me musically and also as a person as well. And not many people get the opportunity to play with a band such as this, and it is a great honour. And I think when you're playing with a band, you don't always realise or understand that. It's only when you actually step away from it that it becomes perhaps more apparent. Well, Black Dyke Band, or Black Dyke Mills Band as it was in the older days, is one of those flagship bands. It's an icon. It's been around for over 160 years. And in that respect, it's held its place within the brass band movement. And brass bands do need these flagship bands. We have Black Dyke Band, we have Grimethorpe Band, we've got Fairies, we've got Fodens, we've got Brighouse and Rastrick just down the road. And these bands need careful nurturing, and sometimes brass bands go through periods where they aren't as successful as they could be, but they are still there and they're still popular with the general public. And these bands are, as I say, flagship bands. We need to keep those, because if these bands disappear, then there is nothing to look up to. And one of the great things about events like Wick Friday is that it gives the ordinary general public, who perhaps never venture near a brass band concert or a contest, it gives the general public a chance to see these bands in action and hear these bands and hear how good they are and the expertise of the players. And I know many people who have not heard a brass band before actually are in wonderment of the skills that are involved. And that for me is why bands like Black Dyke Band are important. They are these flagship bands, they are the icons of the brass band movement. And if we lose those, we are in difficult waters.
Black Dyke?
Well, the future for brass band music is good. There are lots of compositions being made at the moment, and Black Dyke Band are in the forefront of that. They commission every year. Professor Charles has a great programme of commissioning different composers, and many of the pieces that are played on the contest platform have initially been commissioned by the Black Dyke Band, and that's a wonderful thing. Not many bands are doing that, unfortunately, and it's something that bands need to look towards in order to enrich the repertoire and make sure that new music is always readily available. But Black Diet Band is, again, as I say, one of the bands in the forefront of doing this. In fact, the band to do it, and long may they carry on. There's no sort of policy to change that at all. To our younger players, yes, just strive to get to the best bands you can. Obviously play to the best ability, play with your local bands and really enjoy that, but strive as much as you can to be the best you can be, and to look to bands like Black Diet Band and think to yourself, one day I hope to be there, because if you work hard like I did, you will be there eventually.